Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to everyone. Hi, Katie from Albuquerque. Welcome. Katie has been coming almost every Saturday. I enjoy having your company there, Katie. Anybody else, if you're there, say hello. Ellison, let me put the screen up. Ellison, welcome back, Ellison. Ellison is another familiar face. It's always good to see Ellison there. Anybody else there, just don't be shy, say hello. And if you want to say where you're from, if you're here for the first time, welcome. You can always catch up on these sessions on the channel. They always stay up. They stay up forever. So let's get started. Roman Sajacek from Switzerland. You're, as far as I know, you're the first viewer from Switzerland participating. Welcome, Roman. Good to have you here. Let me switch back to, sorry, wrong screen, this screen. Just do the usual quick announcements. We have a lot to talk about today, so I'll skip through these very quickly, as quickly as I can. So thank you very much for joining, all the new faces, all the familiar faces. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a lot of things to talk about today. I'll be presenting during, I would say most of the time I'll be doing all the talking. Make sure you chat with each other if you feel like. Make sure to follow community guidelines. Feel free to ask questions. Once again, I will mostly do the talking, and I'll keep looking at the chat. If somebody has a question, I'll take a look. If I don't see your question, make sure to repeat it. There will be a short interval between grammar and writing where I'll give you a couple of minutes to ask questions and take a breath. One way that you can support the channel is to become a member. Members get perks. I'm very grateful for the members, many of whom have joined just to help out, just because they're showing support for the channel. Things get really slow on YouTube during the summer, which means yikes. I'm really grateful to have that source of income from members. If you're interested, please take a look at the memberships, all the different levels. Some levels, one of the levels you get more perks than the others. You're always I'm always very grateful for any help I can get. You can also send me a super chat during this presentation. Just click the $sign at the bottom of your screen or the chat, and you can make any contribution is extremely extremely helpful. $1, $5, $20, however much you can afford. Roxana, greetings. Let me switch back here. Greetings, Roxana from Mexico. Good to see you back. Roman says, I listen to your inputs and find them very helpful. Thank you so much, Roman. I'm really glad that it's helping. I have a lot of experience as a teacher, as a linguist, so it's always nice to be able to share what I've learned. And also, I've learned languages over the years, so I know I have experience both teaching and learning languages. It's nice that my input is helping. Hannah Zhukova from Ukraine. Woo! Welcome, Hannah. Very nice to have you here. I think you're my first Ukrainian in the room. It's always nice to have people from all over. I think it's really amazing that it actually makes me feel like I have a lot of responsibility, because it's not like my voice is only in one classroom, but it's going all over the place. And then the videos stay on YouTube. And actually, these videos are doing fairly well. A lot of people are watching it after the fact. So thank you so much, Katie, Ellison, Roman, Hannah, and Roxana. I know there are other people watching. Maybe they're watching it on their TV and they can't, participate in the chat. Welcome just the same. Mila from Indonesia. Hello, welcome to another session. In this session, we'll be talking about improving your grammar and writing skills in your target language, all the way from starting to learn to a lot of people complain that they feel like when they start learning a language, it starts really well, they start learning really fast, and then it sort of it plateaus. So we'll be talking about different levels, from all the way from getting started to once you already know something, how can you keep up, and also how to get started on the right foot. Whoops. Okay. Let me just 1 second. I forgot to set up my. Okay, there you go. All right, so today we're talking about learning grammar effectively, and then the second half will be about developing writing skills. I put grammar and writing together because they kind of walk hand in hand. It's difficult to write if you don't have the grammar. If you're trying to communicate ideas as clearly as possible in writing, so you need to have a good basis on grammar. As always, I like to remind people that I do not sell snake oil, no quick fixes. If you think I have a magic wand and after the session you're going to have no problems with your target language whatsoever, you're in the wrong place. Different people are different, they have different needs, so there's no one-size-fits-all solutions. I already mentioned that if you have any questions, don't wait for me to give you a Q&A time. Just jump in. I'll be taking a look. I can see your chat right there now. So if I see a question, I may stop talking and answer your question. Nice to meet you too, Hannah. Good to have you here. Just quick definitions. Those of you who haven't been participating every week, you should know that when I talk about the L1, I'm talking about your native language, whatever language you call your first language or your mother tongue. Your L2 or your target language, I use these interchangeably. This is the language that you're here for. You came to the session because you're interested in learning a second language. We call it L2, but it doesn't mean that it's your second language. It could be your third, fourth. It's not your L1, it's your L2 or your target language. And always remember that there are different learning contexts. So sometimes during the presentation, I may give you an example that would work. For example, if you're learning English in the United States, in that case, English would be your second language, as opposed to learning English in a country where English is not spoken, so that would be a foreign language setting. But just listen to the example or the suggestion I'm making and try to think, okay, so I'm not living in the States, how can I do it where I'm living, and vice versa. All right, so just as a quick reminder from the last session, languages have different register. A register, we change register when we talk to different people in different social situations. So you have a language in formal spoken, you have a language in formal spoken register, and we use a different kind of language in formal written register. So this distinction between informal and formal register will be very important when we talk about writing. Okay, there's an overlap, of course. They're not separate languages; they're the same language. So there's a huge overlap in English, for example, between the way you speak and the way you write. But it's not a perfect overlap. And in some languages, the overlap can be very, very slim, where you have really different informal and formal registers, where even the grammar may change depending on who you're talking to, and so forth. So I'll be referring to register every now and again, but just keep that in mind, that writing is a beast in and of itself. Writing is a different beast. When we talk about learning a second language, we usually think of speaking the language. Well, that would probably be an informal spoken register, maybe a more formal spoken register. But when you talk about written language, yeah, it gets kind of dicey. Gets more formal. So what is grammar? Before we start talking about learning grammar, what is grammar? All languages must have some kind of structure and these structures have rules that tell you how you can put words together, how you can form new words. Do you have verb conjugations? Where do you put the subject? Where do you put the verb, and so forth? So these are structures that are possible in a particular language. So for example, in English, when you say, I read books, you have I before the verb, so you know that that's the subject. Then if I say, I read books, you know books is the object. In some languages, it doesn't matter. You can put the subject after the verb. Sometimes you can put the verb at the end of the sentences, depending on the language. So how do you know what the subject is, what the object is? Well, you have different endings that you add to the word. In English, you don't have that. Okay, so in English, it's possible to create a sentence by using a noun, a verb, and a noun. That's it. That's allowed in English. So when you say, I read books, you understand what I'm saying. But if you say, books read I, you go, whoa, there's something weird here, okay? If you say reads me, but books don't read people, so, there's some dissonance there because books read I, it's not allowed in English, okay? So that's the grammar of the language. The grammar of any language will tell you what's possible and what's not possible. And of course, if you're learning a second language, that can create some difficulties, right? Also, the grammar imposes restrictions. The syntax imposes certain restrictions of what you can and can't say, okay? So let's see, like in Spanish, you have the verb sí is ver in Spanish. A mountain is una montaña. High, the adjective high, is alto if it's masculine, and alta if it's feminine. So if you're an English speaker, you go, what? So montaña is feminine. The word mountain has a gender. It's a grammatical gender, which you don't have in English. But look, you say we, nosotros, saw, that's the conjugated verb in the past, vimos. Hey, cool. It works perfect. A mountain, una montaña. Oh, wait a minute. In Spanish, you have to put the adjective after the noun that it modifies. In English, it has to be between the article and the noun. Okay, so there is a restriction. The grammar in English tells you that you can't say we saw a mountain high. That's not allowed. There's a restriction there as to where you can put the adjective. And actually in Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, sometimes you can flip. Sometimes you put the adjective before the noun, sometimes after. It gets a little more complicated. So again, ver un hombre, a man, tall. Okay, so here we saw high, alto, alta. But here you have tall is also alto, alta. So we say we saw a tall man. Nosotros vimos a un... sorry, I wanted to show something else here. Forgot. I did it in a hurry, and that's what happens. You make mistakes. Okay, so we saw a tall man. Well, in Spanish, what happened to the subject? What happened to we? Well, it's in the verb, okay? So again, in Spanish, there's a rule that says the verb is conjugated, the verb shows you that this has to do with we, nosotros, so you can just drop nosotros, okay? Then saw, so vimos means we saw, a tall man, un hombre alto, again, the Adjective goes after the noun. But then there's this a here. What's that a doing there? Okay, here, vimos una montaña. There's no a una montaña, but here you have vimos a un hombre. Okay, so there's a rule, there's a restriction in Spanish that says that if the object is a person, you need a preposition after the verb. Oh, it doesn't make any sense. Well, that's Spanish, okay? Sometimes you can't apply logic to say, well, if you say vimos una montaña, so vimos un hombre. No, each language has a different set of rules that you have to follow. Let me skip this. Yeah, let me skip this. So how do you learn all that, right? So you're learning Spanish and say, well, sometimes you have preposition that we don't have in English. In English, you can't drop the subject. In Spanish, you can drop the subject. It gets really confusing. So let's go into, how do you tackle this task when you don't have this one-to-one correspondence between your language and your target language? And usually there isn't. Rarely will you see a language where you have one-to-one correspondence. And even very, very close languages, there's always some difference. Okay, one way that teachers have been teaching for a long time uses implicit or explicit instruction. Implicit instruction is where you are exposed to the structure. So I give you a lot of examples to explain the grammar of the language. And from my examples, you can extract the rule. Kind of your brain starts putting things together and say, oh, okay, so implicitly, there's something in these examples I'm giving you that will help you understand, how it's built, how the language is built. This is a little bit the way children learn the language, right? They're exposed to a lot of people talking to them, and their brains are creating rules, grammar rules. They're extracting the grammar rules from just hearing input from the environment, right? However, we're adults, okay? It takes children a long time and a lot of effort, a lot of mental effort to extract all the rules for their native language that they need to extract. It can take years, and they make a lot of mistakes along the way. A lot of times they have to reconsider all the rules because they learned something that they thought was this way, but actually, there's a different rule. So they kind of build that knowledge. We're adults. We don't have to go through this whole painful process of learning a language. So there's something called explicit instruction. That's kind of what I did here when I said in Spanish, when you have a verb and the object is a person, you use this preposition. Vimos a un hombre. Vimos una casa. We saw a house. Vimos una casa. But you say, vimos a un hombre. I just explained it to you. This is the rule, okay? So this would be explicit instruction. Also, we learn a lot of grammar in context from reading, from listening to people speak the language or talking to them directly. So from the context of what's going on around me, we can learn a lot of grammar, right? We start understanding the structure of the language, okay? We can also learn things out of context, okay, where I give you a list of verbs and say, this is the infinitive of the verb, this is the past tense of the verb, this is the present participle of the verb. So if you're learning English, at some point you're going to learn, see, saw, seen, write, wrote, written, write, wrote, written, speak, spoke. You just memorize it, right? And it's kind of out of context. You're not going to do very well if all you do is out of context. But I don't have anything against memorizing things. Sometimes, just look at a structure and you memorize it. But then you have to bring it back into a context. Okay, incidentally, there's something going around YouTube a lot. I've seen this a lot called comprehensible input. Comprehensible input. If you go to a channel They even have channels now for comprehensible input, where usually a native speaker of a particular language, they just talk. The video, they just talk. They show pictures, and it's supposed to be things that from the context, by looking at the picture, by looking at the person making gestures, that input is comprehensible to you. Even if you don't speak the language, you're able to understand it. Okay? So for example, you already know my name is Marc. Okay? So let's say in some language you never heard, I say ik ben Marc. Ik ben Marc. So you know that I'm saying, hello, right? I am Marc, or something like that. So from the input that you're hearing, you can associate what I'm saying. Now, ik ben Marc. It's comprehensible input, okay? A lot of people think that you can learn a whole language only through comprehensible input. Maybe you can, but I think it would be extremely difficult. Comprehensible input is part of learning a language. I think you need a lot of comprehensible input through reading, through listening to people. When you watch, remember when I talked about listening, I said to get you started, listen to things you're familiar with. Remember that? Why should you start if you're, trying to improve your listening? Why should you first listen to things that you're familiar with? Well, because whatever you're hearing, that input will be comprehensible to you. It won't be something that you have no idea what the topic is. You already know something about it. It'll be easier for you to understand. So you'll get more out of your listening. Okay. But if you only do comprehensible input, I think it'll take you years to learn the language. And what about learning the grammar, practicing pronunciation and speaking and fluency and reading and writing? So comprehensible input is part of learning the language. Actually, I've been watching one comprehensible input channel in particular on YouTube that I really enjoy. It's kind of a way to kill some time. It's in Norwegian that I don't speak very well at all, just a few words. But I can actually understand, what they're showing me on the video. So it makes me feel like, oh, I understand Norwegian, but I don't speak it. Okay. So if I'm really serious about learning Norwegian, probably I would continue listening to that channel, especially to get me started. But at some point, I need to go to books, learn the structure, learn the grammar, practice speaking and listening and so forth. Okay, have a question over here. So Roman says, so we learn it more aware as adults. You were talking about learning as kids versus learning as adults. Absolutely, as an adult. Okay, so when you're a child, you're learning out of almost like instinct. Okay, when you're born, you start listening to language, and your brain starts processing whatever language is around you. You have no idea what you're doing. Okay, but there's an innate need for you to communicate with your caretakers and talk about the world. And as you grow, you want to use the language, and it happens kind of naturally. Okay, we start absorbing the language as soon as we are born. Some people believe that even in utero we start hearing the language. Kids just learn because it's there. It's in the environment. As an adult, you know what a language is already. You probably know how to read and write already. You know what a verb is. You know how, language works. You're aware of what a language is. And that awareness kids don't have. Okay, you cannot talk to a little kid about language. So yes, when you learn as an adult, you're an adult. Okay, so use the advantages that you have of being an adult. So Roxana says, in my case, I need to memorize present, past participle, all the verbs. Yeah, that's one way for you to create, more automaticity in the language, to just memorize. But at some point, you have to go from simple memorization to actually using it, because that's when the language comes to life. We'll talk about memorization and going from making it automatic, just memorize, 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 to becoming to really making sense, where you can actually use the language and make sense of it. We'll talk about it, Roxana, in just a minute or two. Don't remember one of the slides. Okay. All right. Oh, there it is. Memorization versus practice. Yeah. So it's fine to memorize. Sometimes I think it helps. You're an adult. You're not like a little kid that, you remember what's important to you, and some things you just forget and it doesn't really matter. But as an adult, if you want to, for example, improve your vocabulary, sometimes you just have to memorize vocabulary. Oh, I keep forgetting the past tense of verbs. You can do some, hardcore forced memorization, but at some point, you need to put that into practice, because just memorizing things out of context, it can only take you so far. You still need to be able to produce meaningful sentences in the language. Another question that some people people get concerned about, is translation. Okay, should I translate? Should I translate? I think it depends. Every now and again, like if I'm learning, just recently, a couple of months ago, there's a word in Dutch that I had seen it 100 times, and I could never quite understand it. I was reading something, that word would pop up. I kind of understood what it meant, but not really. Okay, so finally I gave up. Said, okay, I gave in, and I thought I have to look it up. So I looked it up, and the word meant, in that context, it meant disappointed. And as soon as I saw it in English, oh, disappointed, I was like, oh my God, of course that's what it means, right? So I needed to translate into English, which I understand. I can feel it, to be able to look at that word in Dutch and also have that, oh, disappointed. I'm disappointed. Oh, since then, I remember just recently I was watching a video in Dutch, and somebody said the word, and I was like, there it is. And I could clearly understand the word for the first time in years, that I keep hearing that word and not quite understanding. However, if you translate all the time, it can be problematic, okay? Because, like I said, you don't have this one-to-one correspondence, right, between your L1 and your L2. So sometimes you have an expression in English that in the second language could have multiple ways of expressing it, but English has only one. So you have like 2 or 3 different ways in the other language. You have 2 or 3 different expressions that translate as only one expression in English. Well, you're not going to be able to know the difference between these 3 if you're only translating it into English, right? It just doesn't work too well. My tip for this, translating, memorizing versus practicing, my big tip for today is focus on the meaning rather than the form, okay? So the language has kind of like a shell. It has a structure, okay? So you have subjects, verbs, and verb conjugation. You have a certain format. Okay, all of that stuff, how you put the words and the endings, all of that has one function: to communicate ideas. There are concepts, ideas that you're communicating using that structure. You can have the same idea, but communicated in another language, and the structure changes, okay? So what you should be focusing on is not just looking at the structure, But what does that structure mean? Okay. As an example, I'll give an ESL example here. The example here is that in English, you learn that will is the future, right? In general, when people think of will, oh, it means I will go. I will in the future, okay? So let's look at some examples. So you say, I'll be back at 5. Okay, yeah, future. I'll be back at 5. However, you go to a restaurant, the waiter says, are you ready to order? And you say, oh, yes, I'll have the chicken, please. I'll have the chicken. Is that future? I'm not saying that I will have the chicken tomorrow, right? You're saying, yes, I have decided, I made a selection. My selection is chicken. I'll have the chicken. It's not future. It means I made a selection and this is what I want, right? How about, hey, close the door, will you? Close the door, will you? This is not future. This is just a tag question that you put at the end of an imperative. Close the door, and to make it softer, to make it nicer, you say, will you? Okay? So, again, this is not future. Oh, whenever I'm in Chicago, I'll always go to this restaurant. And when I get there, I'll talk to the waiters, and they're so nice to me. You know, they'll come to the table and they'll ask me questions. It's such a nice restaurant. Okay, again, I'm using will, but actually I'm talking about something that I do all the time. Okay, like I say, every time my mother comes to my house, she'll walk around looking at things and she'll start telling me that I didn't clean the house well. You know, she'll do that all the time. I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking about something that she does all the time. My mother doesn't do that. Okay, so again, I will, and the verb means future. Well, not really. Okay, so I will verb is the structure. So you learn that structure. So I will be back. Will you be back to ask a question? I will not, or I won't be back. So you know the structure. I will you, I won't. Okay, fine. Now focus on the meaning. Here it means future. Here it means this is my selection. Here it's just a tag question. Here it's a habitual action. But how can will mean something that I do all the time? Focus on the meaning, okay? If you look at this and say, but it must be future, you're not doing what I'm suggesting you should do, okay? You should look at the structure and say, okay, I look at the structure, what does it mean? What does it communicate? But how can it be future here and a habitual action here? That's just the language. That's how the language is, okay? So another example, this one is from Portuguese, okay? So in Portuguese, you say, I am means estou, it is está, okay? So the verb to be, estou for me, está for something. Hot is quente, heat, calor, okay? So if you say, it's hot today, very simple sentence, right? It's hot today. So in English, you have this structure. It doesn't really mean anything, just it. You have the verb be, it is, hot, okay? In Portuguese, so you'd say, so it is, está hot. Está muito quente hoje. It didn't say very. I don't want you guys to get all confused about this. Okay, so it's hot, está quente. Okay, but you can also say está fazendo calor. Wait. It is hot. Está fazendo calor. Oh, no, that doesn't make sense. No, stop. Okay, relax. So calor means heat. Okay, fazendo is a verb that means like something is happening or doing or making. Okay, so when you say fazendo calor, it means it's hot. Oh, but it doesn't make sense because this verb means do. Okay, focus on the meaning rather than the form. Okay, no, if you translate this into English, it doesn't make any sense. It translates as, it's making heat today. It's making heat. What? It doesn't make sense. It does in Portuguese. You're not, trying to change English. You're trying to learn how it is said in Portuguese. Okay. How about this? I'm hot. I'm hot. Oh, wait a minute. It means the same thing. Well, in Portuguese, you can say, I'm hot. Estou com calor. It means, estou com calor. It means, I'm hot. But what if you have a fever? Oh, I'm hot. So even in English, it has two meanings, right? I'm hot. Or, ooh, I'm really hot, right? Well, in Portuguese, you can't do that. You have to say, estou com calor. Or, oh my God, estou quente, right? Does that make sense? And that's what I was saying before, that if you start translating all the time and you translate this, estou com calor. Oh, it means I'm hot. Estou quente. It means I'm hot. You go, what? It doesn't make any sense. Well, because the translation doesn't give you the information that you have in Portuguese. In English, when you say I'm hot, there's no context, right? But if you say, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting sick, I'm really hot. Well, I will understand that you're saying that your body is hot, like you're hot to the touch. But if you say, ooh, open the window, I'm hot, I know that you're feeling hot, okay? Let me see. Trying to understand this comment here. So some teachers want us to learn English, but they punish students because of mistakes. What do you think about this? I think you need a new teacher. If you have a teacher that punishes you for making mistakes, they're not doing their job, because part of learning a language is making mistakes. Okay, you have to make a lot of mistakes until it feels right. I don't know. Yeah, there are a lot of problems with the educational system. Just the fact that we give people grades because they made, if you make a mistake, you have a lower grade. It's supposed to measure, your improvement. But if somebody just makes a mistake and you get mad at them or punish them, that's, ugh. Ellison's asking about Anki. That's one of the things that you can do to memorize, like force memorization, right? I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I've never used Anki. I hear people talk about it all the time. One point I used a program called Teach 2000. It was for the PC. I know it's easier to have it on your phone, so I think Anki's on your phone and all that. Roman says, translating into the target language, that is the other way around, I find it is more effective because it reveals the structure and makes you see it. Yeah, but the problem, Roman, is that, if you're asking someone who doesn't speak the language very well to translate into the language, they won't know. For example, if I ask someone to translate I'm hot into Portuguese, they won't know that there's a difference between estou com calor or estou quente. Okay, so yeah, I think, like I said, translating here and there, I don't have a problem with that at all. But if you can only understand something when you translate, or if you feel dependent on translating all the time, otherwise you can't, learn anything, you have to kind of try not to, try to understand things in the target language as much as possible. If you can't translate it, look up, the translation. But, really be careful with, stuff like that, where like in Portuguese, you have all these different ways of expressing something that in English, you just say, be hot. Okay. So, focus on what the grammar is, but mostly what it's communicating to you. So when you see will, like if you're learning English in the room, if you're learning English, the next time you see will, now you know that it's not just the future. It could be any number of things. Okay, then you go like, okay, I have to understand exactly in the context what this person is trying to say. I had an example in Arabic, but I don't want to make this like a 2-hour session. So tips, balance memorization and practice. That's what I was saying, right? If you want to use Anki, all those memorization apps, that's great. Roxana, I think it's great that you're memorizing present, past, present participle. It's a good way for you to get automaticity. But as you memorize things, make sure that you understand the context and the meaning. Okay, so if you're learning, go, went, gone, speak, spoke, spoken, take, took, taken, make sure that you know that, you use it in different constructions. And at some point, you have to move from sheer memorization to practicing, putting it into use. And that's when you get really frustrated because you make mistakes and you forget things. Yeah, and that's what makes learning a language so yes, because you have to like really struggle. Some people don't like that, but for me, it's like that's the excitement of knowing that you keep making a mistake and one day you get it right. Woohoo! It's wonderful. All right, we're going to move from grammar into writing. Just as a reminder, if you want to contribute, if you want to help me so that I can continue making these sessions, one way is to use the super chat. I really appreciate it, or become a member or what have you. Whoops, sorry. There. What about Will Smith? I don't know what you're saying about Will Smith. Oh, Will. Yeah, Will is the future Smith. Ellison, that was bad. Bada boom. Okay, well, I don't see any questions there. I guess you guys already asked the questions that you had, so let's just move on. Okay, yeah, and also let me thank Roxana Chavez. Roxana's actually in the room today. Thais Bras, Rahul Khate, Cesar Camilla, Ian Smirlis, Dwi Salastiwati, D'Angelo, Paul Humphreys, and Nikki Sepharis. Nikki is one of our new members. These are people that became members. It's very, very sweet of anyone who decides that they value the work I do enough for them to make a contribution, and they get some perks too. All right, so let's talk about writing. So before we talk about learning how to write or improving your writing, let's think about what writing is, okay? Because we kind of take it for granted. We take reading and writing for granted because we do it all the time. We see writing everywhere, right? And we learned how to read and write so long ago that we just don't even think about it, okay? So why do we write? We write to record or immortalize ideas, to communicate ideas. Hey, Roxana, thank you. Fireworks, Roxana. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It really helps. Okay, so we write to immortalize ideas. And that's actually since ancient times, like the Egyptians would write in tombs because they wanted to immortalize, the people that were buried there, tell a story, because they kind of knew that would, well, they expected their monuments to live on forever. Okay, they wanted to be immortal. That was a way for them to immortalize it. So you record an idea that will stay fixed in time, but mostly to communicate ideas, right? You have a thought, you want to communicate it. Oh, I have to ask my friend if he wants to go out for dinner with me. Okay, you pull out your phone and you write. Okay, you have an idea. Let's go out to eat, and you write it so that you can send it without having to call and actually use spoken words. Also, artistic expression. Some people just, like to use words in artistic ways. but you're still expressing something. You're expressing ideas, concepts. Okay. Reading and writing are this weird thing humans do. Reading and writing are weird. If you really stop and think about it, it's really weird. So you get something, a piece of paper, a piece of wood, a rock, or whatever, and you make little lines on it. You put little symbols on it. Any symbols. Okay? And then somebody else comes and they look at those symbols and they know exactly what you were thinking when you wrote that. Of course, they have to share, okay? Two people need to share that convention. And that's something else too that's kind of weird, right? We just created this convention to record language, okay? Of course, way back, thousands of years ago, they couldn't just tape record someone, so they found a way to put it on a rock. They chiseled it on a rock, and somebody can now, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years later, someone can look at it, look at those squiggles, and read it, have an idea that somebody had years ago. So it's a weird thing because you're not born doing it. Okay, when you're born, you learn a language naturally. You can speak the language, you can hear it, interpret it, have thoughts, and communicate your thoughts orally. Okay, but reading and writing, somebody needs to teach you how to do it. Somebody needs to teach you how to read and write. Okay. Also, reading and writing are connected as far as I am concerned. The writer has an idea, you encode it. So you have the idea, you encode it in that way that is accepted by other people with little lines, little symbols, something, punctuation. Okay, I encode it, and then I can send it. And nowadays, with the internet, I can send it around the world. But it can't stop there, right? Somebody has to receive it. The reader receives that message, decodes it, that's reading, and now the reader has the same idea in their head, okay? Which is kind of cool. So, and there's a connection there. Reading and writing. So we talked about reading last week. You can bring a lot of that information into writing, actually. Okay? The encoding is based on a shared language and writing conventions. Spoken and written language often have different conventions. So even though writing is based on a language, you're writing the language, right? They have different conventions. When you speak, for example, you don't organize the information the same way that you do as you write. And actually, that's one big problem that people have when they write, is that they think that they can just write the same way as they speak. When we speak, when we tell a story, we go, blah, blah, we talk about something. When we remember something else, we don't organize the information, neatly. But when you write the same story, you have the opportunity because, you have control, okay? You can control the organization a lot better than you do when you speak. When you speak, you don't have punctuation. When you write, as a convention, they decided, when you write without, there's no, I don't know where the sentence ends. I don't know, when there's something that it's like an aside. It's really confusing. So people started coming up with punctuation. So period means, okay, the sentence has ended. Okay, a comma could mean a lot of things. It could be like a break in the sentence. If I put things between commas, it's like using parentheses. Parentheses, that's another type of punctuation. What if it's a question? Oh, let's make a little squiggly line with a dot at the bottom. That will be a question mark. Okay, we kind of have punctuation in spoken language, but it's not, not the same way. We use intonation, we use breathing, body language, and so forth, okay? Different conventions, okay? Visual information. When you speak, I can use my body language to show certain things, show information. You don't have the same ability to do it in writing. But in writing, you can put pictures there. You can put a graph. You can put a table that you can't really recreate in spoken language. You'd have to explain the table, right? So same language, but very different conventions. So in a way, when you learn a second language, even if you speak it very well, you may be surprised when you go to write it that the conventions are very different. And it may be more different than it is. Like in English, there's a difference between spoken English and written English. There's this much difference. You may be learning a target language where the difference is this big. Okay, there's a much greater difference between spoken and written language. So another tip is know your writing skills in your native language. As an ESL instructor, and also when I taught, as an ESL instructor, teaching writing, a lot of times I would talk to my students about their writing in their native language, the same way I did in reading. So, reading is so hard in English, but then I would talk to them about reading in their language, and I realized that they were not really that great at reading in their native language. Same thing with writing. Writing in English, it's impossible. But then they couldn't write very well in their native language either, okay? So how good are you? Honestly, how good are you at writing? And then don't expect writing in your second language, in your target language, to be equally good. Okay, you still have a lot to learn. You may know how to write in your native language really well because you know the conventions, but the conventions may be very different in your target language. Okay, it only makes sense. So don't be disappointed if I'm such a good writer in my native language, but in my target language I suck. Well, you're supposed to. You're learning. Also, ask yourself if writing is one of your motives for learning your target language. Remember one of our first presentations, we talked about your motivations for learning a language. You may not have the motivation to learn writing. I like Spanish, but I have no desire to be a good writer in Spanish. I like to talk to, people in Spanish, to say a few words here and there. Sometimes I'll read it. If there's a movie in Spanish, I can understand it really well. But when it comes down to writing, I'm like, why? But that's my motive. Okay, I don't have the motivation to learn to write really well in Spanish. There's no need for me to do that. But maybe for you, in your native language, in your target language, you either have to learn to write or you want to learn to write. That kind of changes everything. Another tip for you to improve your writing is write a lot. Write a lot. Okay, it doesn't have to be fancy writing, just write. And some people say, I just started learning, I can't write. You don't have to be proficient or fluent in your target language to start writing in it. Just write simple things. Okay. I had this lesson, about, simple things in the language. Well, write down what you remember. Write down different examples for that. Just start writing as soon as you can, if that's important for you. Okay, now some tips to develop writing fluency that I have for today. One is called free writing. Okay, so let's assume that you're learning whatever language you're learning your target language, and you want to learn how to write really well. There's something called writing fluency, okay? It's your ability to sit down and just write without having to think very much. We have that in our L1. but in your L2 is really hard. You keep getting stuck, right? So do free writing. Pick a time during the day. Could be twice a week, 4 times a week, as many times as you want. Make it part of your study routine. Okay, just sit down and just write. Write. Don't think about what you're writing, what you're saying. It doesn't have to make sense. Just write whatever comes to your mind. If you're writing and then you can't think of anything, you write, I cannot think of anything to write right now, but just keep writing. Okay, start out with like maybe 5 minutes and then try to make it a little longer. Or start out with 1 minute and then go to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, then as long as you want. Okay. Also, make writing part of your other skills. Remember when we talked about listening? I said, go to a website, listen to something, read the news, listen to it, and then you write a summary. Remember that? If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. So make that writing, that summary, part of your study routine. Okay, you'll be practicing your writing. Okay, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't know what to write about." Well, just write about what you're listening to. You can get a little fancier. Start a blog. Anybody has a blog nowadays. Keep a writing journal. Just get a notebook. Nobody needs to read it. Pick a topic every day or every week. Just write about it. Write about that topic. You can describe your day. You can respond to the news. Again, part of your listening practice. You read something, reading practice. You listen to it. Go find one of those websites where you can read the news and you can listen to the news at the same time. And then they have a video. You're practicing a lot of stuff. Then get your writing journal, summarize it, write about it, write your thoughts about it. Okay, how did that make you feel? And also, I put a link in the description. I have a complete course on the other channel. It's my ESL channel, but even if you're a native English speaker, I think the videos, they're not dumbed down. Just because it's ESL doesn't mean they're dumbed down. I use easier examples, I use easier language, but the content is legit. Okay, I teach the writing process. Okay, let me give it to you in a really, really brief summary here. So the writing process. If you're writing someone an email, you're writing in your blog, you're writing a report for work. It doesn't matter what you write. You can use this process so you don't have that panic where you open a document and you don't know where to start. You have a white document in front of you and you panic. How do I start? Okay. Well, start by doing the first thing you need to do. Okay. It's called a pre-writing. So this is before you start writing. If you have no ideas to write about, create an idea. Think about it. Ask people, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I want to write something, I don't know. Or I want to write something about this, but it's too much. Discuss it. Just think before you start writing, think about what you want to write about, okay? If you're writing an email for work, probably you know the information you need there, okay? But organize the information first. Don't write the email. Organize it first. Get a piece of paper and write. Okay, so I need to write. Oh, I need to talk about this. Just write a little bullet. Write this. Oh, I need to mention this. I need to mention this. Okay, so you're organizing the information, and then you can move those bullets around first. Oh no, first I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this. Okay, so you're generating ideas, organizing it. You're planning it. Okay, you're thinking about. My email, will I write 3 paragraphs or just 1? Okay, so you're organizing your ideas first. Then you go to the writing part. Okay, well, now you have a plan. Get your notes. Oh, first bullet. Oh, yeah. So, dear John, I'm writing to tell you about 3 important things. 3 important things. Okay, first, and then maybe that could be a paragraph. Or no, I think I can put everything into one paragraph first, this and that. Also, that's my second bullet, right? You already organized your ideas before you started writing. Now all you have to do is put it into writing, okay? Got the idea, encode it into writing, but you have to have the idea first. What happens is that a lot of people, they'll just open an email and they start writing and they go like, "Ooh, I forgot. Oh yeah, by the way, I also wanted to tell you," and then they remember something else and they get all like, ah. So if you're writing in your native language, this is a really important process to know. Okay, if you're writing in a second language, definitely it will help you if you follow the writing process. Okay, at the end, don't just hit send. Okay, go over the email. First, revise it for content. Make sure that the content is there. Make sure it's making sense, that you're using the right words. So, this word here, it sounds kind of rude. Oh, this email's for my boss, and I'm being kind of rude here. How can I say the same thing without being rude? So you can change things, or you're just working on the content, okay? And then finally, when you're happy with all the ideas, go back and look at the grammar, spelling, punctuation, okay? So first you revise for content, and then you edit for grammar, punctuation, and style. Of course, if it's something really short, you can do both at the same time. But if you're, talking about pages and pages, first revise it for content, make sure you're happy with the content, and then go over it for a final time for grammar, punctuation, style, and so forth. Okay, there's a lot more. I have this whole collection of videos on Snap Language Learner. The link is in the description if you want to go watch it. They're short videos, and it walks you from beginning to end. Okay, in the videos in that series, I'm helping students write an essay. But that process works for writing an essay, for writing an email, for writing in your blog, for writing anything. A lot of times when you're learning a second language, they test you, right? Was it Roman that said, no, Hannah that said it, they punish you for your mistakes and stuff. Okay, so some courses, language courses, are really hardcore, and they want you to write, and they want you to be good in all 4 skills. When you're tested, they may tell you to, like, for example, write about your vacation, or write about your dreams and hope. And usually they come up with some stupid topic. And people just freak out, okay? So it's a new language, and don't speak the language very well yet. And I'm supposed to talk about my dreams. Well, what do you want to talk about? Before you start writing, think about, I have all these dreams. I'm going to pick one that's easy to talk about. Okay, organize it. Oh, I'm going to mention this about my dream, this and this. Okay, then follow your plan. Then go back over it. Make sure your ideas are clear. Edit the grammar. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're writing a short paragraph for a test, or writing an email to your boss, or what it is. Just check out that series. So the bottom line for grammar is that the more exposure to the target language you have, the more opportunities you're creating to get used to that structure of the language. Remember in Portuguese, estou com calor. What was the other one? Estou quente. We're like, what? Well, the more exposure you get to reading, writing, even listening, studying, memorizing, whatever exposure you can get to the language, the more you will get used to the grammatical structures of the language, until when you hear estou com calor, it feels like I'm hot. But different from, estou quente. You hear the difference, okay? You start hearing the difference. That takes a lot of exposure for you to start. I call that psychological reality. The language has psychological reality for you. When you hear someone say, I'm hot, or estou com calor, or ik ben heet, or whatever in different languages, you go, oh yeah, it feels like, what it's supposed to mean. And, you know, a surefire way for you to do that is that you need to focus on the meaning. Okay? Don't keep looking at the structure. Oh, this doesn't make sense. Look at the structure, learn the structure. That you have to do that. Make it as automatic as possible through practice, memorization, trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. But you have to focus on the meaning. Okay? Otherwise, you will be really good at the structure. You know how to conjugate a verb, but you don't know what the conjugation means, right? You go, oh, this verb goes with this preposition, but you don't know what that means, right? It just doesn't make sense to learn the language that way. In writing, always organize your ideas, focus on the message you're conveying, and remember the writing is weird. And if writing in your target language is if writing in your target language is important for you, you need to engage in the process by writing as soon as you start learning the language. Start writing short things and start making it more and more complex. And just be patient with yourself. You're learning a whole different language, including writing in that language, which is not easy even for native speakers. Okay. And thank you so much for making it to week 9. Next week, we'll be talking about finding and creating your own learning resources so you can become independent. Roman, thank you so much. Oh, I love that. Look at the little dancing. Was that a dancing lemon? Roman, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It really helps a lot. Thank you, Roxana, for the super chat, and thank you, Roman, for the super chat. Oh, that's a super sticker. Roman sent me a super sticker in Swiss francs. That's cool. All right, thank you guys so much. If you guys have any questions, whoops, there you go. No, I need this one. If you guys have any, yeah. Roxana, thank you very much. One day, of course you will, Roxana. You have, you're doing really well already. You participate. You understand these live streams, which, you know, the content is not always easy. You can write in the chat. You're not afraid of making mistakes. Yeah, you're on the right track. I'm pretty sure that you will be a great speaker. You already are. Any other questions? How are we doing time-wise? Yeah, we got it down to an hour. Let me switch over here. If we don't have any more questions, so again, I want to thank all of you for participating. Thank you so much, Roman and Roxana, for the super sticker and the super chat. Thank you, Ellison. Hannah, welcome to Snap Language. I hope to see you next week. And let's see, Ellison. Katie Denson, thank you so much for coming. Katie was very quiet today. Mila from Indonesia. I don't know if Mila is still there. I hope you were there, Mila. Welcome to the session. Ellison, goodbye. Thank you so much for participating. All right, guys. If you seems like you don't have any more questions, I love all the little smiley faces you guys put at the end. So again, Roxana, thank you so much. Roman, thank you so much. Guys, thank you for being here for, gosh, 9 weeks. I can't believe that. I hope you guys are learning a lot. All right, take care.